The house stood alone, a silhouette against the dying light. Weeds choked its once grand gardens, now a haven for rustling things. Broken windows stared like vacant eyes, reflecting the fading sky. It was a place forgotten, a place for secrets. The house on Harbinger Lane had always been there, as far as anyone could remember. No one dared to approach. Whispers clung to it like cobwebs. Tales of vanished families, of strange lights, of whispers carried on the wind. It was a place where fear took root, where shadows played tricks on the eye, where the night held its breath. Toby wasn't like the other children. He had a certain air about him, a mysterious aura that set him apart from his peers. While other kids played in the sun, Toby found solace in the shadows. He wasn't afraid of the dark. In fact, he found it comforting, like an old friend who held secrets just for him. The darkness was his playground, a place where his imagination could run wild. He wasn't afraid of stories that made the hairs on your arms stand on end. Ghost stories. Tales of the supernatural and eerie legends fascinated him. They were like puzzles waiting to be solved, each one a piece of a larger, unseen world. In fact, he craved them. The more spine-chilling the story, the more he wanted to hear. He would sit for hours, listening intently, his eyes wide with wonder and excitement. He collected whispers of the unknown like others collected stamps. Every secret, every hushed word was a treasure to him. He kept them all in a special notebook, a journal of mysteries that only he could decipher. So the house on Harbinger Lane, shrouded in its cloak of mystery, called to him. It was an old, abandoned place, rumoured to be haunted. To Toby, it was a beacon, a place where secrets lay hidden, waiting to be discovered.
One night, under the silver gaze of a full moon, I decided to face my fears, or rather, to befriend them. I took my journal and a flashlight and set out for the house on Harbinger Lane. I felt a thrill course through me as I crept closer to the house, its shadow stretching out like an eager hand. The air was thick with anticipation, and my heart pounded in my chest. I knew that within its decaying walls, a story waited to be unearthed. Each creak of the floorboards, each whisper of the wind seemed to beckon me closer. This was my moment, the beginning of an adventure that would change everything.
The old iron gate groaned like a dying beast as Toby pushed it open. The overgrown path was swallowed by shadows, but he pressed on, drawn by an unseen force. He reached the front door, its paint peeling like scabs.
Taking a deep breath, I knocked 3 times.
The house was silent except for the creaking of its old bones. He tried the doorknob. It turned with a grating sound, and the door creaked open as if inviting him in. A musty smell like forgotten memories wafted out, making him wrinkle his nose. He stepped inside, and the world outside ceased to exist. The air inside was heavy, thick with dust and the weight of silence. It felt as though the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to break the stillness. Moonlight filtered through the grimy windows, casting long, dancing shadows. The beams of light seemed to bring the room to life, making the dust particles shimmer like tiny stars in the darkness. Toby tiptoed into the foyer, his hand trailing along the cobweb-draped banister. Each step he took was careful, almost reverent, as if he feared disturbing the ghosts of the past that lingered in the corners. A grandfather clock stood at the end of the hall, its pendulum frozen in time. The clock's face was covered in a thick layer of dust, its hands forever stuck at 3:15, a silent witness to the passage of years.
As I walked deeper into the house, I noticed a large, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. Its frame was intricately carved, depicting scenes of nature and myth, now barely visible beneath the grime. Its surface was clouded with dust, but as I approached, I could have sworn I saw a figure reflected in its depths. The figure seemed to be watching me, its eyes following my every move. A tall, gaunt figure in a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat. The figure's presence was both unsettling and strangely familiar, as if I had seen it somewhere before, in a dream or a distant memory. But when I blinked, it was gone. The mirror reflected only my own puzzled face, and the room was once again empty, save for the dust and shadows.
Toby continued his exploration, each room a snapshot of a life interrupted. The air was thick with dust, and the scent of old wood and forgotten memories filled his nostrils. Each step he took echoed through the empty halls, a reminder of the silence that had taken over this once lively home. A half-finished game lay on a dusty table, pieces scattered as if the players had left in a hurry. A child's doll with one eye missing sat abandoned on a rocking chair, its once vibrant colours now faded. The room seemed frozen in time, a silent witness to the lives that had once filled it with laughter and joy. But it was the sound that drew him in, a soft, melodic humming coming from the room at the end of the hallway. It was faint at first, almost like a whisper carried by the wind, but it grew louder with each step he took. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, a lullaby that seemed to call out to him, beckoning him to uncover its source. It sounded like a lullaby, one that might have been sung to soothe a child to sleep. The notes were delicate, each one lingering in the air before fading away, only to be replaced by the next. It was a song filled with both sorrow and comfort, a paradox that tugged at Toby's heart.
He approached cautiously, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever, the flickering light under the door at the end casting eerie shadows on the walls. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very air around him was thickening, trying to hold him back. The humming grew louder, laced with a melancholic beauty that sent shivers down his spine. It was as if the song was alive, wrapping itself around him, pulling him closer to the source of its haunting melody. The closer he got, the more he felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He reached for the doorknob, its cold metal sending a jolt through him. His hand trembled as he grasped it, the chill seeping into his bones. He hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady himself, before turning the knob slowly. He turned it slowly, and the humming ceased abruptly. The sudden silence was deafening, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Toby pushed the door open, stepping into the unknown, his heart racing with anticipation and dread.
In the center of the room sat a woman in a rocking chair, her back to him. Her long silver hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall, and she hummed softly to herself.
"Hello?" Toby whispered, his voice trembling slightly. The room was dimly lit by a single flickering candle, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls.
The woman didn't turn. She continued humming, her voice as soft and ethereal as the moonlight streaming through the window. He took a hesitant step forward, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. The humming, he realized, was coming from the wind, whistling through a crack in the window. As he drew closer, the woman stopped humming and slowly turned to face him. Toby gasped and stumbled backward. It wasn't a woman at all. It was a porcelain doll, its painted eyes staring blankly ahead, its mouth frozen in a creepy smile. S1, he ran out of the room, his heart pounding in his chest. As he fled the house, he could have sworn he heard a voice whisper on the wind, "Thank you for playing with me, Toby." S1. Toby didn't stop running until he was safe in his own room, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The house on Harbinger Lane loomed large in his memory, a haunting reminder of the night's events. He never spoke of what he had seen, but the experience changed him. He carried the secret of the whispering shadows with him, and the memory of the doll's vacant eyes haunted his dreams. The house on Harbinger Lane remained a silent sentinel guarding its secrets. S1. He began to research the history of the house, poring over old newspaper articles and local law. He learned of a family who had lived there many years ago, a family who had vanished without a trace. The only clue? A porcelain doll found clutched in the hand of their youngest child, the same doll Toby had seen. S1. Narrator, life went on. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. But Toby never forgot his night at the abandoned house. The experience had awakened something in him, a fascination with the unseen world that he couldn't shake. Toby never returned to the house on Harbinger Lane, but he never truly left it behind either. He realized that some secrets are best left buried, some doors better left unopened. As he drifted off to sleep each night, he couldn't help but wonder about the whispers he'd heard, the shadows he'd seen. And sometimes, when the wind howled outside his window, he could have sworn he heard a faint familiar humming. A lullaby from a forgotten time, carried on the breath of the whispering shadows. Sis 1.